7. So thank you very much. The name of our Advanced Toastmasters Club is Peak Performance. Yet what may signify peak speaking and leadership performance is no doubt different for each club member. This morning, let's explore in some detail what peak performance means to each one of us and what it might mean to go beyond our present peak. To lead us in our consideration, please welcome the new and as yet untested Vice President of Education, our beloved PenDell Pittman. Woo!
That was a wordy intro. I'm going to have to get a new speechwriter. Long's Peak, 14,259 feet in elevation. Meeker Peak, 13,916 feet in elevation. Peak performance, as tall, as high as we want to make it. Our name, Peak Performance, obviously is a metaphor, and that peak performance is personal to each one of us. And it is dynamic, it's changing. It is as big as we want to make it. It is focused by our purpose. It is measured by our goals. My job, I feel, as Vice President of Education this year is solely, if not primarily, to help you achieve your goals. Now, we've obviously lapsed into a new year, and so you see a new set of faces up here, a new set of officers talking about our ideals as a club and our ideals as individuals. And so I want to review with you, or to explore with you today, our goals as individuals, which I think will help us establish this year's goals as a club. Pete Tomasi is becoming famous for using the word why. In fact, he told me the other day that in his office, up on the wall, he has a big sign that says why. And he finds himself looking at that every 2 or 3 minutes some days. He'll look up and say, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I scheduled to do what I'm doing today? Why am I talking on this phone call? And I think this is very inspiring relative to our work at Peak. Why are we members of Peak? Why do we give speeches at Toastmasters, either here or at our local club? Why are we active doing what we're doing? I'm going to be continuing some member interviews in the next few weeks. I don't think I've gotten to any of you yet, okay? That will happen soon. And what I wish for each member is for us to attain our personal speaking and leadership goals for this year. These goals hopefully will be super specific and related to our activities outside of Toastmasters. I would assume that most of us spend our weeks, all but 2 or 3 hours a week, outside of Toastmasters. And so I'm interested in what each one of us feels Toastmasters brings to other aspects of our life, our work life, our church life, our family life. How does our speaking and leadership functions personally impact others in our world? To me, this is the reason for Toastmasters, so that we can become better speakers, become better leaders. And I think good leaders are good speakers. If you can't communicate, I don't believe we can lead. So I want to develop our goals personally so that I, as the VPE, can determine what our schedule will be for the year. I'm thinking relative to our schedule that we will continue to pass our volunteer sheet, but I want to encourage each one to stay on their rhythm relative to accomplishing their speaker goals. And I'm going to suggest a number of things this morning. some of which are changes. All of these are experimental and open for feedback and review. So I'll announce them. I might sound like I'm announcing them in declarative tones. However, things could change one or more times before we actually come to the sweet spot relative to some of these. One of them is this, and I'll get back to member interviews in a minute, which is why you have the blank pieces of paper passed out there. Evaluations. I'd like to try something new relative to evaluations, which is this. Whereas we have had our round-robin evaluations, and this remains a valuable tool, I would like to expand the modes by which we as speakers can receive evaluations. Round-robin evaluations are certainly on the table, but I'd like to expand that to this. Perhaps some speakers don't want any verbal evaluation at all. They want it to only be written. Maybe some speakers would like to have one evaluator who evaluates one specific aspect of their speech. Maybe their vocal intonation, maybe the composition of their speech. Did the speech move from one point to another point? In other words, a more specialized or localized evaluation than what our round-robin evaluations will sometimes offer, which can tend to be a spectrum of different suggestions, valuable as they are. Maybe they're not always what a speaker is looking for. So I'm looking to empower the speaker and his or her evaluator to determine how the evaluation goes. Perhaps the evaluator, the speaker and evaluator, will pass out a specific sheet of questions. How did the speaker accomplish this, that, or the other thing? So this will mean a little bit more work for the speaker in the sense that there will be preparation required for how the evaluation is taken on. We can always default back to the sheets, but I would suggest that all of us partake in the extra industry to prepare how we want our evaluations to happen. I see the evaluator as a coach and a feedback person before the speech happens. So much can happen before the speech is given. Now, of course, this requires each speaker and evaluator to do homework before the speech is given. Perhaps not everybody would care to do that, but I would certainly encourage that. So the overall time for the speech and the evaluations has averaged 23 minutes. I would like to experiment with this idea, like I say, of allowing the speaker and evaluator to organize that 23 minutes. Now that is the time for the speech and the time for the evaluation. So that entire chunk of time, while it will continue to fit into our meeting format, will be in the hands of the speaker and the evaluator. Now what this does for the audience is that allows us to hone our skills as evaluators in addressing exactly what we're asked to address and not to address other aspects. I suppose after the meeting we could always say, did you consider the fact that you're up there with no clothes on? And it might be more appropriate if you were to dress for a speech, or whatever unrelated topic may cross your mind. That could be offered later. I would suggest that either the speaker or the evaluator give an idea before the speech begins. Give an idea to the audience, particularly the guests, as to how the evaluation will work and what the speaker is looking for relative to evaluations. For one thing, I have heard that some guests are a little intimidated when they come in, they hear a speech cold, and then all of a sudden we blaze into our round-robin evaluation, which we as members are totally comfortable with. But all of a sudden, the guests, oftentimes the more inexperienced guests, become intimidated by the level of evaluations that are coming back. So what I'll suggest is that we give them a little comfort food. We, as speakers, tell them what we are looking for in an evaluation and that we actually are voluntarily receiving this evaluation. This will require, like I say, for us as evaluators or as audience members to stick solely to what we're asked to evaluate. I'd like to, moving on to another subject, public meetings, I'd like to work very closely with our VPPR, Greg, and we have been already, at expanding what we offer to the public, or what we offer beyond our Saturday morning meetings. This could include speechathons, which, by the way, will give us more speaker slot capacity as needed. I'd like to see us actively use the district's speakers bureau, or develop an informal one of our own. We have the Ignite Fort Collins events. One thing I'm thinking of, and we can see how this works for us, is to have 2 forums this year, one in March and one in October, before our local elections, where we sponsor a forum for our political candidates to come and tell us how they're going to benefit us if elected. That would be one thing we could look at. Perhaps we could sponsor some entrepreneurs gatherings, where entrepreneurs can actually practice delivering their speech relative to what they have of value for us, what funding they need to raise, that sort of thing. Anyway, you get the idea of public meetings. I would love for us to roll up our sleeves a little bit this year and be more high profile. Suggestions, welcome. And like I say, all of this I'm putting out, we haven't even had our first EC meeting, so Mike may clip my wings for all I know. But anyway, these are some ideas that I'm putting out there for our consideration. I have the red light, but as I've already told you, I'm going to disregard it because I am taking responsibility for this entire 23-minute period up here, and we'll see how it works. I'll be the first beta test. I'm developing a master calendar for this club year. This is something that the officers will need to review and hone. I would like to offer that to all members as soon as we're able to, so that we have an idea of what's coming for the year. Here are a couple of events. Mike already mentioned the Fort Collins TLI on July 26th. Our division level contests, which are humorous and evaluation this year, is scheduled for October 18th. Now we'll work this backwards. Division is October 18th. The area contest, or tri-area, however they configure it, the area governors that is this year, has not been announced yet. So moving backwards from that, I am suggesting that in order to give us ample time to prepare, that maybe along about August 30th, we have our club contest. Now that already feels like a tight window to me, so that's why I wanted to suggest that if we don't do it on August 30th, we do it sometime in that period, and that we prepare now, because that's coming up. Our fall district conference, from what I understand, is Saturday, November 15th. And I'm getting wind of the idea of having a one-day conference. So in other words, I think they're going to lose that Friday night element and start it on Saturday morning. These are just so you can have some idea of what's coming up. So those are the ideas I have. We'll see how it flies. I may come up at some point in the near future and say, yeah, that's not going to work. We'll go back to something else. However, that's what I'm looking for. So I hope that's clear relative to the evaluations, and I'll be working with the speakers in the next few weeks to make this more specific. So back to the member interviews. If you would, please take your blank sheets of paper, and I am going to ask a few questions. And I would love for you to do a combination of things. One is, write what inspiration comes immediately to your head. And, on the other hand, see if you can go deep with these answers. For instance, if I ask you, what are your goals for this year? Yeah, I'd like to finish my ACS. Okay, why? And in what context do you want to do that? What elements are your speeches going to be, and so forth? So I'm going to ask you some specific questions. If you would please, pretend like you're in first grade again, or probably about third grade, and put your name in the upper right-hand corner. And below that also put your most advanced designation, ACS, ALB, whatever it might be. Okay. Question number one. What is your why for being a peak member? And by the way, any answer is great. It doesn't have to be lofty. It can be, you know what? I just love the fellowship aspect. I just have friends here and I just love to come. And every now and then I give a speech. That's fine. That's fine. It doesn't need to be loftier than that. On the other hand, maybe you want to be an accredited speaker in the next 6 months, something along that line. Whatever it is, write down your why. And a more specific question there, why would you like to be a better speaker? What is it in your world, in your life, that would be benefited by you being a better speaker? Or how would it benefit you to be a better speaker? My family would understand me better. I think it would help me get a raise. I would know how to better communicate with this impenetrable boss I have, whatever it might be. So what is your why for being a Peak member? Why would you like to be a better speaker? This will, by the way, not only give me information about you, it will also help me hone my question process. Number 3, in what realm of your life do you most want to excel as a speaker? Now, some of these are related questions. Would it be your work life, your church life, your charity life, your family life? Please write something besides all the above. Again, be as specific as you would like to be. And I am going to ask you to hand these in, so I'm going to be looking at the answers. I'm not planning to share the answers beyond myself.
All right, that's great.
Yeah, right. So I'm your new best friend forever. And once I get mine written out, I can pass around. You can read it if you want to. It'll be a nice moment of narcissism for me and probably boredom for you. So be specific. Number 4. Am I going too fast?
No.
Okay, good. I'm watching my 23 minutes up here, by the way, so hopefully I'm not going too slow. How can your progress in Toastmasters, meaning both here and your local club, more effectively impact your specific speaker realm? In other words, we've talked about in what realms would you like to be a better speaker. Now we're putting some wheels on it. How can your Toastmaster experience help you be that better speaker in whatever realm you're looking to be? How can your progress in Toastmasters more effectively impact that specific speaker realm? So in the Toastmaster context, what would your number 1, number 2, and number 3 goals be? If you only have 2 or 1, that's okay. What would your number 1, 2, and 3 goals for your Toastmasters work this year be? What I'm attempting to do, obviously, here is to get beyond, well, I just want to earn my DTM, which is great.
Do you want this limited, though, to Toastmasters educational awards?
In this particular question, no. Meaning, you could also put there, I'd like to have more practice speaking publicly. It could be bigger concepts than just that. But if you want to put down what your next goal is, that'd be great. I want to earn my whatever, that's great. But also expand it to, what are your goals for Toastmasters in a more general sense? I'd like to be in the Ignite Fort Collins this year. I've always chickened out, but I'd like to get that done this year. And what I'm aiming for here too is anything that we can help support you with. I'd like to win the humorous contest. I'd like to win the evaluation contest. I'd like to win the international contest and show up in Vegas in 2015 and knock them dead. And And while you're writing, if it's helpful, divide your goal items between what you want to accomplish in your local club and what you want to accomplish at Peak. For instance, I think a number of us calculate which awards we're going to assign to which club. And by the way, I think we have our initial CC goal already met for this year, so we're rocking already. So, the next one, how many speeches will you present this year and approximate dates? How many speeches and approximate dates?
Do you mean both here and in home club, or?
Yes. And make it so I can discern which ones are at Peak so that I can schedule. So how many speeches? And you can think through, well, let's see, my capacity is probably one every 6 weeks, one every month, one every 6 months, whatever it may be. And I really would suggest for you to push it. I mean, just aim for the stars, kind of thing. Say, I want to give one every other meeting. We won't judge you if you don't, but we want to schedule you if you do. And then, how many of these speeches will be in a public forum? In other words, I would encourage you to decide that you're going to give a public speech this year. You're going to give something which is value-based for a general public audience, which means they're not Toastmasters who are there to evaluate whatever you say, including your plans to fly to the moon. Actually, a public speech that would be of value to a civilian audience, so to speak.
Do first graders count?
Hmm?
Do first graders count?
Absolutely. Yes. Impressionable minds? You bet. Next one is, are you interested in Speech Lab? Now, to remind you, Speech Lab is a set of sessions that we're planning outside the regular Saturday meetings, which let you rehearse specific aspects of a speech you're going to give. For example, when Mike was preparing for his contest several weeks ago, he had a number of us critique him relative to, specifically relative to the content of his speech, relative to how a turn of phrase worked. In other words, very specific aspects of a speech. How many are interested in participating in Speech Lab? What specifically would you like help with in a speech lab? In other words, I hear I have a tinny voice. I hear I'm monotone. I hear that a lot of my speeches are confusing point to point, and I need help with my content. What would you like help with in a speech lab? I get that some of these questions are a little obtuse, but I appreciate your efforts. In what specific areas can you offer help in a speech lab? Or more broadly, what do you feel your strengths are as far as mentoring or teaching or helping other speakers? For instance, Mike, to use him as an example again, is very practiced in turns of phrase, in content that is notable. How to use a phrase, for instance, his phrase, we don't just want to be a club of champions, we want to be a champion of clubs, for example. I assume that's yours, that you didn't rip it off of Lance Miller, but that's our story, we're sticking, it's yours.
It is an original, as far as I know.
Absolutely, there we go.
An example of chiasmus.
See? So we want him around, particularly we want more chiasmuses in our speech. Which I know
I just got a shot.
I know I certainly do.
I've taken a lot more out of alcohol than alcohol's taken out of me.
But
which is not original.
that reminds me of a joke, but I don't think I can say it in mixed company. So, what other Peak members have something to teach you? So So in other words, think through our membership roster. If we could avail ourselves of some teaching time, either one-on-one or otherwise, what members do you feel have something to offer you, or offer anybody?
We're supposed to be answering these as we go, because I'm really behind.
Oh, sorry.
I think I skipped one entirely, so.
And they may
Yeah,
not
writing
be in
more
the
than
proper
one.
order, just,
Yeah.
And maybe I'm writing too much of a novel.
No, I think it's great. I think it's great. Except I am coming up on my time here, so.
Yeah, I have you over, but carry on.
That's probably going to be about enough. I've got some more questions that basically ask the same question again in a different way, but I think you have it. And I appreciate your patience today. I know this is a bit of an obtuse speech, if it is a speech. So I don't want to run more over time than I have already. I want to thank you for your input. Please continue writing as you like. I will put out this questionnaire on email. And so if you'd like to further answer questions on email, you can. If you've already answered them on paper, then you don't have to answer them again on email. And I will, please make sure you hand me your papers before you leave. I will say that this is my only role, leadership role this year. I'm not doing district things or anything. I want to concentrate at the club level where I personally think the action is. And I am dedicated to helping you achieve your goals this year. So, thank you very much.